Marvel's, Disney's, Square Enix's Avengers game is not very good. It's not the worst game ever made, it's not the worst game I've ever played, but boy howdy, I don't think I enjoyed it. This is probably not a surprise to some of you since the beta was a disaster and all the trailers looked kinda bland. This game's basically exactly what you expect. I gotta say, this game really feels like a soulless experience for a majority of the main campaign. A lot of the content in this game is taken from other games like Destiny or Anthem. The Destiny UI already isn't that good, but imagine if it were worse somehow. In this game you gather randomized loot and you dismantle old loot for resources that I never found any significant use for. You can pick up bounties in the hub areas and raise your rank with different factions. Just like in Destiny, except in this game, it's not fun at all. None of this shit seems like it's right for this kind of game. There was never a point in this game where I had any idea what the gear did. I never cared what I had on. Because it doesn't change how you look on the outside, so you're even less incentivized to collect it. In other games like this, if you grind for a really powerful gun or weapon, you can actually use that weapon and feel how strong it is. In this game, the loot feels really useless, and it's surprising that a lot of the content in this game is based on getting more loot. Why the fuck would I grind for loot if it doesn't do anything? In games that this game is trying to rip off, you usually have like an endgame raid or something that your loot is going towards. There's usually a reason why you're grinding to get your character strong enough, but in this game, there's nothing like that. The post-game content is just based around normal missions, and those missions are basically the same as the campaign missions, and they're not very good. In all the missions in this game, you run around fighting robots and punching walls. The combat is not entirely engaging, but it's not the worst combat that I've ever experienced. My problem with it is that you're never incentivized into doing anything other than mashing square or triangle and then dodging every once in a while. But if I could give credit to this game in any regards, I am impressed that they made each character function differently. I kind of expected all of these characters to basically be the same character, but they do have different things that they can do. But there are some characters that are definitely way more fun to play than others. Iron Man has combos that change depending on which sub-weapon he has equipped. Black Widow has a grappling hook that she can use to extend her combos. But when you play as Hulk, you can either do one combo or throw rocks. I don't understand how they managed to make Hulk the boring character in this game. This is literally just a game where you run around smashing shit, and Hulk is the worst character. Thor is also kind of underwhelming, which was pretty surprising to me. It feels like he should be more fun. I don't know, a lot of it has to do with how the game feels. Hitting enemies doesn't feel satisfying. When you hit enemies, it sounds like you're just slapping them with slabs of meat, unless you're playing as Iron Man, Cap, or Thor, in which case it sounds like you're beating up a car. It also never feels like you're doing too much damage, and you're only doing the same basic combos, so it just isn't fun to fight things after a while. You can try to do cool combos, but there's constantly too much shit happening on screen, so you're just gonna get interrupted. Ranged attacks are impossible to aim on console, sometimes you'll just get hit by something off screen and die, and it's just very easy for combat to become a muddled mess. It also blows my mind that there are so few memorable bosses in this game. You fight Abomination, and then a robot, and then another robot, and then the final boss, and that's it. This is probably the least amount of supervillains I've ever seen in a superhero video game. Actions like throwing Thor's hammer or Captain America's shield should feel really strong and satisfying, but in this game, they feel really weak, and that just doesn't seem right to me. You know when the Batman games came out and the meme was that they make you feel like Batman? Yeah, well, this is the opposite. I don't feel like Captain America. I don't feel like the Hulk. I think the one character that feels right in this game is Iron Man. And you guys know that I'm not like the biggest Iron Man fan or anything, so it was pretty surprising that I liked playing as him this much. It just feels like he can do way more than some of the other characters. Sometimes I'd just pick him and then fly ahead and beat the level on my own. He also gets some really cool story moments where he's just gunning it while Iron Maiden plays in the background. Like, this is pretty good Tony Stark representation, and I noticed a very big bias towards him in this game. After a while, I just started to wish that this was an Iron Man game. I don't think you can properly balance a game with this many superheroes, and if it was just a standalone Iron Man game, I would have had a lot more fun probably. Give him more weapons and some cool unlockables, and we're in business. I mean, the core of the game is already perfectly fine as long as you're not cramming a bunch of shit in it. This game can hardly handle having 4 Avengers on screen at a time anyway. Because as you've probably heard before, this game's technical performance is not very good. It is laughably bad at some points. I had multiple glitches that forced me to restart my checkpoint.
What the fuck? What's happening? What's going on? What the fuck? Oh, I have unspent skill points.
Frame rate dips that made many fights impossible to enjoy. I had a boss only load halfway into the battle, so I couldn't actually beat it because it didn't have any weak points yet.
If you skip the cutscene, the boss fight doesn't start.
There are scenes where the subtitles are saying something completely different from what the characters are saying.
What are you saying?
Power cannot be controlled. I know that now. It has to be destroyed.
What are the subtitles trying to...
Also, if you want to add an extra layer of comedy to this game, just turn the subtitles on in general, because they give you the full script. Not just the dialogue, they will tell you everything that's happening. The game just does not function properly sometimes. I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to technical issues, but this game really broke my patience. I was really trying to like it. I was trying so hard to give it a chance, and it felt like the game was actively trying to convince me not to have fun. And I'm capable of turning my brain off and having dumb fun in a superhero video game, but this game still made me mad. Not to mention the amount of games as a service elements in this game are just so awful. Each character has their own separate battle pass. They expect you to pay for each one individually. And the shit you get in the battle pass isn't even worth it. You can get skins, except all the skins are shitty. It's a fucking superhero game with bad costumes. I'm not kidding. This is by far the worst selection of costumes I have ever seen in a superhero game. And this game has 6 fucking superheroes, dude. 6! Out of all 6 of these iconic superheroes, they couldn't just find some cool costumes to throw on them. It's mind-blowing. I have no idea how you fuck that up. But among all this, a lot of people claim that the story is really good, and I think those people are exaggerating quite a bit. I will say, though, that the story is fine. There's some pretty cringy moments, but it's not any worse than most Marvel movies, so I can't really be upset. And there's a lot of cute stuff that happens too. It feels like a normal Marvel narrative. However, there are a lot of weird moments, and that's really the best way I can put it. For instance, Kamala gets her powers off screen. Abomination shows up without any explanation of who he is, so if you don't know who he is, go fuck yourself. He's here now. But then, after you beat him, he just leaves the story. He's not important anymore. Some scenes begin and end so abruptly that you'll think you accidentally skipped a cutscene. I do have to say that the voice acting, while never, amazing, is also never bad. It's acceptable. Most of this story is just acceptable. But what I think really sucks is that you cannot enjoy this story with a friend in co-op. This game has a very big focus on multiplayer, but that only really matters for side content and post-game content. I personally could tell this game was going to be bad. I watched people play the beta, but I figured I could just run through the story with a friend or two and make up for it. But no, a majority of the campaign is single player only, which is really disappointing. I just wanted to play this stupid game with my friends. After I had beaten the campaign, I finally hopped into some multiplayer sessions, but it felt so hollow. It was just a bunch of people running around a map gathering more fucking useless loot. What's the point? What am I grinding for? Once I did finally group up with my actual friends, we did have fun coordinating how we were gonna beat levels together. It's kinda cool to play as Captain America fighting foot soldiers while telling your friend playing as Iron Man to kill the flying enemies that you can't reach. I found out that my favorite character to play as became Black Widow through these multiplayer sessions. And if you know me, you know how weird that sounds. So yeah, there are times in this game when I had fun, but they were very rare. Most of the time, I sat with a completely neutral expression, simply going through the motions, fighting robots, and more robots and more fucking robots. It feels to me like this game does have potential, but it would need a massive rework. The core gameplay of running around punching robots all day is not very engaging. The enemy types are boring and look the same. The environments are boring and look the same. There's no worthwhile loot to unlock or discover. And honestly, Marvel Ultimate Alliance has more personality than this game, and that's a game where you literally do just mash one button. This game does not have its own identity, and it shows. It's a very hollow experience. I could see this game getting better one day if they release a bunch of content and fix the bugs, but right now, on release, I think this is a very generic and mediocre game. And when it comes to giving this game a number, I was gonna be nice and give it a 5. But honestly, I don't think a game with this many technical issues and this many painful microtransactions really deserves a higher score. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and give Marvel's Avengers a 4 out of 10.